Members who are in the chamber should remain in their places until the procession has left the chamber. The procession, led by the acting sergeant at arms and the usher of the Black Rod, will leave the chamber in the following order: the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, the President, and then the Acting Secretary to Parliament. In addition, the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces will also follow, the Deputy President will follow, and the Acting Secretary to Parliament, as was indicated earlier. That, honorable members, concludes the business for the day, and the joint sitting is now adjourned.
All right, that sums up basically what has been the State of the Nation Address 2022. The President, Vuyo, starting off with saying that the path that we choose now will determine our path for generations to come, and also talking about how it is going to be important that whatever message is communicated by government today, Vuyo, is one that charts a way forward for the country, and one that he says needed to revive some kind of hope.
Well, we'll see if indeed some of the proposals he is putting on the table do indeed speak to that. Of course, we are not alone with, we are with Professor Ndevu. I don't know, Prof, what your takeaways are, what you made first of the speech overall.
Thank you, Vuyo. I think when the President started, one had a lot of hope, especially when he started by saying we're at a crossroad. So one knew that the President appreciates the circumstances that our people find ourselves in, the weaknesses that have been confirmed by two high-level panels in terms of our institution, and also that to me signaled that the President was going to give us a different input. But as the President was delivering his speech, it was not to be. And I will tell you why. We have been saying that we are waiting for the President to actually give us tangible projects that have that are specific, are more specific, that are measurable, that have time frame, that are time bound, and that he has not delivered once again. And that is unfortunately what many of us expected that the President would deliver on. He has had some glimpse of appreciation of our problems that we're experiencing, but beyond that, we have not seen anything that we wanted to see.
Did it sound like more promises than actually taking stock? Because I'm certain in such settings, you'd also want to use the time to show the country what you've done, what government has done up until this point, especially when you can even say in the past 2 years, in the past year, this is what we promised and this is what was delivered.
The State of the Nation, by its nature, it is to take stock of where we are as a nation. And I did not get that sense. As you correctly indicated, I got a sense that the President was forward-looking instead of reflecting. There were times where he reflected on a few issues, but we expect him on a number of issues that he has actually came up with plans to. He should have first reflected where we are and say what has got us where we are and how we are going to ensure that in the future we are not back where we are. And I think that becomes a problem.
As the name suggests, it's the state of our nation, then followed by what we are going to do to deal with the problems facing our nation.
I am not sure whether the President appreciates the state of the nation as I do after listening to his speech, because one has to reflect on what is happening. And where I am, I find that it is indeed, the challenges are more than the good story that the president would like to tell us. And we would have loved to hear what is his appreciation of the
All
current
right,
state.
Prof, let us just interrupt you for a second and go live to that Economic Freedom Fighters briefing.
Facilitator of ensuring that the small business gets opportunities is the Department of Small Business. On its own, it has dismally failed, but the president has gradually passed a motion of no confidence on the Minister of Small Business, but also outsourcing issues of environment and raising the necessary capital is also another passing of motion of no confidence in the Minister of Environment. But has also passed a motion of no confidence on himself after promising so many millions of jobs. Now he says government cannot provide jobs. Jobs must be provided by the private sector. And in the manifesto of the ANC, which made him a president, committed jobs. So generally, they've outsourced the responsibility of governing our people into a private sector. If you look at the approach on the state-owned enterprises, it clearly is being outsourced. Nothing said about the high levels of crime in South Africa, cash in transit haste and violent crime and the rape that is taking place in this country. No emphasis on how we're going to deal with that. The state of education and its infrastructure, the clinics and hospitals that have collapsed dismally. There is no public health in South Africa. The president has got no commitment about it. Nothing on international relations, but also a follow-up on saying last year I said this and this is what we have done so far, and therefore this year we are going to continue in this way and introduce new projects. The president has given up. He doesn't have an alternative, and like we said in the opening of Parliament when we were speaking, that the expert report effectively suggests that this government must resign because our government and the country is on an autopilot. The president gets shocked by everything. Why would a president come and announce that a person has opened an ice cream store? That is a report of a councillor. It's not a report of a president. And for a person to now not eat, that money is for surviving. For a person not to eat for 9 months because he must open an ice cream store, and it's something that the president comes here and celebrate. Why is the president telling us about his shoes and his cheap suit and not telling us that this is how much we have done as government to hire and procure locally? It's something else for an individual to buy a suit. The biggest buyer in South Africa is government. If president is proud about buy local, how much have they spent as government to buy local? Not genuine leather shoes of his. That is a side issue which must be spoken when they are drinking with his friends. It's not a matter of national importance. What is important is let's get an account. The EFF has emphasized that government must procure locally. How much of their budget are they spending on local procurement? Then that can be a discussion. Not suits, not individual shoes.
Atim Tangana from Newsroom, based on the back to Samgele.
Well, certainly a lot of talking points from the State of the Nation address. Joining me now is the leader of the official opposition, Mr. John Steenhuisen. John, coming into this SONA, you were lamenting the fact that you want to hear a lot about economic growth and job creation. Did the president's speech actually strike the right notes?
He struck exactly the right chord tonight on the economy, and he took it all out of the DA playbook. I'm delighted that for the first time now we have an ANC president admitting that the statist approach is not going to get growth and that you need the private sector, and announced some of the things the DA has been talking about for years: cutting red tape, involving the private sector, opening up the economy more, realizing that the state cannot drive growth in South Africa or create jobs. So this is a major shift. I hope the president is going to be able to convince his party that that is the case. But certainly, I think on the economy tonight, there's a lot in common with things the DA is already doing where we govern. But again, it's going to come down to the implementation. And that's one of the things I took away from tonight's speech. You would have noticed 3 new private people in the president's office dealing with red tape, dealing with raising funds for climate change, and one of the other things. why is the president not doing this with cabinet ministers? It's clear that he feels he's got a dummy cabinet that can't implement the things that he wants done. So he's now going to pull people into his office to get the things done. The small business minister should be cutting red tape. The trade and industry minister should be doing some of those things that he spoke about. And I think it's a very clear sign. The big omission tonight, how we catch up education for our children over the last year. Very, very little touching on that. How are we going to make up the time that they've lost? Up to 50% of schooling for poor South African children has been lost. We don't want to end up with another generation left behind, lack of opportunity because they didn't get a quality education.
John Steenhuisen, thank you so much for your time. He is the leader of the official opposition, the Democratic Alliance. Natasha is standing by with more reaction.
Well, thank you so much, Bulelani. I'm actually joined by the IFP's national spokesperson and the SCOPE chairperson, Mr. Mkhululeko Hlengwa. Just your brief reaction. Thank you so much for joining us at SABC News. Your brief reaction. The president did mention the state capture report, and he had said that he will carefully consider it, he will act upon it, and in June he will outline his plan of action in regards to this report. Does this make you happy?
Well, I mean, we've heard this all before. We've been down this road before with the president, and he has not covered himself in any glory insofar as implementation is concerned. So we walk out of this SONA yet again with the same concerns that the president is leading a government that in effect cannot implement. And so if these things is announced now, which he had announced previously in his previous SONAs, had been implemented, he wouldn't be having to be talking about them right now. So there is an absolute trust deficit in between what the president announced and what his government does. The state capture report obviously does not need much consideration. Suffice to say, it must be implemented. And the president, in announcing the Noble plans and the June outer date, there's certain things that he should be doing right now. His Minister of Communications has been cited in irregularities insofar as Denel is concerned. The president should be acting on the minister as a demonstration that this report must be acted upon. But here too again, we are saddled with a very slow pace, laissez-faire attitude to things, and the president seemingly thinking that all is well and announcing plans along the lines of business as usual, whereas the situation is very dire and very, very complicated. Moreover, there was a lack of acceptance on the part of the president and his executive to take responsibility and accountability for the things that have gone wrong. All these things have happened on their watch, and the fact that they are unable to muster the political will and political courage to acknowledge their complicity in this matter is an indication of a government that is out of touch.
Mr. Hlengwa, thank you so much. Thank you. Bulelani, I believe you have a guest with you as well.
Thank you, Natasha. Once again, we're taking more reactions right here in front of the Cape Town City Hall. Bringing into this conversation now is Ngabayomzi Kwangwa, the UDM's chief whip. Mr. Kwangwa, your reaction to the president's speech, I mean, he's making the commitment that the 350 rand social grant of distress is going to be extended for another year.
Well, while that's a good initiative, it's also an admission that this government is not able to create jobs or to reignite growth in the South African economy. Yes, we listen to the president. The speech obviously is idea-rich. He's very good at framing the problem and at times actually proposing clear solutions of what needs to be done. But unfortunately, he's been spouting the same platitudes for the longest period without any political will to implement them. The other issue here is that this is a neoliberal speech. It focuses more on privatization. It sounded more like I was listening to a DA manifesto, a DA speech, where he contradicts himself right at the beginning of the speech, where he talks about the importance of the state playing a conducive role and creating a conducive environment for the private sector in which to operate. But at the same time, at the latter part of the speech, he starts talking about a developmental state. The two can't coexist well together. It's either you want to have a developmental state where the state intervenes decisively in the economy, or do you want to serve the role of a meter grader at a financial institution where all that you do is to show people where consultants are sitting and where you go for loans. Now, the state, in order to actually be able to drive the development of this country, they need to intervene decisively, but you need to build a capable state. The problem is that the state now is manned with a lot of people with questionable competence and others have non-existent training and they're expected to deliver miracles. But in other areas where they were talking about the initiatives insofar as agriculture is concerned, those vouchers must be welcome. There are certain programs that they implement that work well. But the challenge with the president, he doesn't have the human capital, the people to be able to implement the lofty ideals and plans and goals that he actually talks about all the time.
Mr. Mzikwangwa, the UDM's chief whip, giving us his party's perspective. For more reaction, we cross back to Natasha.
Thank you so much, Bulelani. I'm now joined by the Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Phaahla. And Dr. Phaahla, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. We heard the President there touching on issues around, what government has done to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Are you happy to date government or the Department of Health has actually administered over 30 million jabs? And of course, you're encouraging more and more South Africans to actually go get vaccinated.
Well, we think we've really done a lot. If you think of where we were just 12 months ago, this time in 2021, we were battling to get vaccine doses. We had just been disappointed with the AstraZeneca, which was proving to be ineffective against what was then the Beta variant, and looking around for alternatives. And of course, we were able to negotiate with two other companies. And we started slowly, middle of February last year. We started with the Sisonke trial, in which we were able to get some J&J doses collected from all over the world. Started with health workers middle of July. And today, as we go towards the 17th of July, which will be next week, that will be 12 months exactly when we gave the first dose. And as we go in towards that, we will be somewhere around just 30 million and 500 doses. But of course, what we're still not satisfied with is the fact that we can do better. We have the capacity, as we talk to you now, where we could even do much more than that. The 70%, which was our target, is doable, and we still urge South Africans to come forward.
Dr. Joe, of course, thank you so much for your time. We will catch up with you at a later stage. And of course, let me just link up with my colleague, Usamgele Masego. Sam, who do you have on your side?
Well, Natasha, the ATM earlier on called for the resignation of the President, Cyril Ramaphosa. Mr. Zungulu, are you still calling for the resignation of the President? Were you inspired by his speech here tonight?
I can't be inspired by a person who's failed South Africans, who keeps lying to South Africans, who keeps making empty promises to South Africans. It is clear that Mr. Ramaphosa has got no clue what it means to govern a country, because he speaks as if he's an economist, or he speaks as if he's an analyst. He's not speaking as if he's a leader of a country with a clear program of action and with a clear track record of actions to improve the lives of the people of our country. Under his leadership, unemployment has risen, crime has risen, poverty has risen, and there is no clear direction in which anyone can have confidence in his presidency.
Thank you very much, the President of the ATM there. Over to my colleague Bulelani, who's going to be speaking to the United Democratic Movement.
Well, thank you so much, Sam. Now joining me is the leader of the FF Plus, Dr. Peter Groenewald. The expropriation bill will be brought before Parliament before the end of the year. Your take as the party?
Well, we said that we rejected the whole process, and we, of course, welcome the fact that the expropriation bill, as far as Section 25 of the Constitution is concerned, has failed in Parliament. The expropriation bill in front of Parliament now will not be able to contravene Section 25 of the Constitution, and we will see to it that that does not happen. And if the expropriation bill, for instance, provides for expropriation without compensation, we will go to the Constitutional Court.
On the state capture?
Well, on the state capture, again, the President said that he will come forward with a program how to monitor the whole situation. We were waiting for that. He also said, for instance, that he will create a team to monitor, for instance, the SIU and all the corrupt cases, well, we in the Freedom Front Plus will monitor him and his team to see whether they comply and ensure that the corrupt people will pay the price for stealing the money of the taxpayers of South Africa.
Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Groenewald, leader of the FF+. For more reaction, Natasha is standing by.
Thank you once again, Bulelani. I'm joined by two leaders of two political parties, but let's just actually start off with Mr. Sheikh Imam, who's the leader of the NFP. Mr. Imam, you heard President Cyril Ramaphosa's SONA speech there. At the beginning of his speech, he had said that there is an intention to end the national state of disaster. Your reaction?
Yes, indeed. I think it is about time that we do end the national state of disaster and bring absolute normality to the economy and to society as a whole. And I think what is very important to notice is that the infection rates are very, very low in the country at this point in time. The death rates are actually low at this point in time. And the impact of this Omicron variant is actually very, very low. So I think it is important that we get back to absolute normality so that people can get back to work. Businesses have suffered in the country. The economy is still, negatively impacted as a result of COVID-19. And I think the sooner we get back to normality in South Africa, the better it is going to be for the economy.
Mr. Imam, thank you so much for your time. Let me also just take this conversation here to Reverend Kenneth Mesha, which we spoke to earlier on. That day you heard the speech there by the President. To the delight of many, the COVID-19 grant has been extended by another year. Does this satisfy the ACDP?
Well, we are happy to hear that he is considering ending the national state of disaster. We have been looking forward to that because Parliament has been inactive and the President and his small team, have been running the country, which obviously we are very unhappy about. But we are delighted that he did acknowledge that Parliament must start operating and doing its work properly, because we know that once Parliament starts working well, a number of things that are out of place are not going to be in place, and the rights of the people, the freedoms of the people are going to be restored. A lot of freedoms, have been suspended, but now looks like we are going back to normality, and we are very happy about that. I was concerned when they were always talking about this is the new normal, this is the new normal. So now we are going back to the normal life that we want to with our families, and I'm hoping that living with these masks, we are going to put them aside so that children can see their parents smiling. Children can see one another smiling, because it helps in the development of a child to see you speak and to see how your mouth moves, because it is stated that when children don't see your mouth when you speak, it hinders the development of speech. So we are grateful that the state of disaster is going to be brought to an end.
Mr. Mesha, there were also talks towards the end of his speech. The President has said that there are talks with the judiciary to actually establish special courtrooms to deal with state capture and corruption.
That is most welcome, because that will speed up the process. We want those who are involved to be punished as soon as possible, and also the money they looted, the money they stole, must be paid back to the fiscals so that that money can be used to help other people. But again, I expected more from him regarding the report of the panel of experts, because what happened when the Minister of Intelligence was nowhere to be seen, saying nothing, and of the police, same thing, Commissioner of Police, nothing. I mean, for the past 3 days, when the whole thing started, you could not hear from them or even see them. So I think punishment should have come upon them, and would be disappointed if they are not removed. I think that would be the best thing to do, to remove those who allow so much damage to be done to our economy.
Reverend Mesha, thank you so much for your time. Let me cross over back to my colleague Bulelani Phillips, who's with the Finance Minister, Mr. Enoch Godongwana.
Thank you so much, Natasha, the man who handles our finances, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. Thank you so much for your time, sir. The President emphasizing that business must create jobs and the state's responsibility must be to create an enabling environment. Is that something that you have been insisting on since you took office?
I can't say that's something I've been insisting on. It's just basic economics. Basic economics suggests that the bulk of productive activity in the economy is largely business and private sector, and therefore we've got to create a conducive environment to that. The structural reforms the President announced are intended exactly to give content to that message.
Politically, I mean, how will you respond then to accusations or criticism that you are pandering to the right and to business?
No, I don't think there's there will be, let's put it bluntly. No one would dispute that 70% of employment and 70 largely productive activities done by the private sector. And therefore, for this economy to grow, we've got to create a better space for them.
And on the structural reforms, particularly on cutting the red tape, how soon can we expect to see results in terms of making sure that there is this enabling environment for business?
The President has made a concrete announcement in the form of Mr. Sipenkos, who used to be a CEO of a listed company, Xaro. And the intention is to say, yes, somebody who's going to be working with the departments, but I will coordinate as the president that work. So it's a concrete implementation plan right as we speak.
Thank you so much, Finance Minister, Mr. Enoch Godongwane. Good luck to him as he restructures the economy. For more reaction, Samkele is standing by.
Yes, indeed, Bulelani, politicians are reacting to the State of the Nation address of the President. The fossil fuels man, Mr. Mantashe, energy security in the country, what's happening?
Now, if you listen to the President carefully, is that the program of improving energy security is on the go. It's not a promise, it is a project that is being implemented. That's why he cited a number of the bid windows that are on the pipeline. The first one has been approved. We will now be publishing requests for proposals for the second one. In August is the third one. Total of those will be 7,600 megawatts. So if you have that being constructed, you are implementing, you are not promising. Now, the only difference is that when you talk of energy, many people think that energy is instant. It's not coffee. If you approve a project, they go and build a power station. They generate. It takes some time. We must be patient for that. That's why there's a difference between an immediate need and a goal. And then when you build for a goal, you must be systematic and be confident.
The President goes further to say our democracy is under threat. Is there substance to the statement?
It's a democracy. You know, when there's a revolution, Samkel, you must always know that there will be active counter-revolution. So it's not something unique. It requires the state to be strong. That's why if you take that State of the Nation, it's divided into three. It's the comprehensive management of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is the economics, and it is security. And all of them talk to the issue you are raising.
When it comes to your internal issues, he spoke, particularly when you look at the high panel report and how it speaks to the lack of efficiency within state security. He says there's going to be a number of changes when it comes to state security issues, particularly with the allegations that he made in that leaked audio clip that some of your party members were using slush funds from state security to fight your own internal battles.
No, if he says there will be changes, that is a commitment to implementing a program to correct the weaknesses. And therefore we must all anticipate that and actually ask for speed in changing that. Because if you don't address problems, or you wish you will have a period where there are no problems, you are just dreaming. When there are problems, you act. When there are problems, you act. Then you can change the reality into the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mantashe. That was Kwede Mantashe, Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy. Over to you, my colleague Natasha Piri, for more reaction.
Thank you so much, Samgel. I'm actually joined by the acting president of SALGA, Councillor Dion. Councillor Dion, thank you so much for joining us on SABC News. I know it's a busy time for SALGA. You had your provincial conferences. You're now gearing up for your national conference where new leadership will be elected. As you know, that the minister now is no more SALGA. She's now, the deputy minister of COGTA. Did the president speak to your needs or municipalities' needs in his State of the Nation address?
Yes, indeed. I must say, from the SALGA point of view, we do think the president have touched on very serious issues affecting our members, which is the municipalities. The fact that they raised the issue that they want to make it easier for municipalities also to be able to compete in electricity provision, especially with renewable energy. It's a very important issue for SALGA because some of our municipalities are capable of developing renewable energy. So the president has been saying they will be fast-tracking the regulations which will allow municipalities to deal with it. Because our members are faced with the challenge when there's no load shedding and people doesn't have electricity. Water, as you know, our country have a challenge with water. Communities are having not water regularly. So the president also raised the issue of what government will do to assist in ensuring that we have water timelessly for our communities. We were privileged to have a meeting this morning with the Minister of Water Affairs, Mr. Senzo Mkunu, where we raised our views on what can be done to ensure that water provision is becoming stable in the country. So we appreciate what has been mentioned. The district development model, if implemented perfectly and every party comes to the party, it can also enhance service delivery within our districts and at the local level.
Councillor Dion, thank you so much for your time. That was Councillor Dion, the acting president of SALGA. Let me toss over back to my colleague, Bulelani Phillips.
Thank you so much, Natasha. We're now taking reaction from Good Party General Secretary, Mr. Brett Herron. I know your party is quite involved in community development. The announcement that the 350 Rand grant for social distress will be extended by another year, and government also committing that over the next 100 days they will be coming with a comprehensive social security reforms. How do you receive that as the party? Does it go far enough given that there has been talks of a basic income grant lately?
So, I mean, one of the things we wanted to hear from the president was around social security, a social security system that would provide for those who are unemployed in an environment where there are no jobs being created. The extension of the social distress relief grant by another year is welcome, but really what we wanted to hear was that the debate around the implementation of a basic income grant or universal basic income would be put to bed, and that our government would implement a universal basic income or basic income grant for those who are unable to find work and who are trapped in poverty and unemployment and with zero access to income. So it was a little disappointing that that debate continues about whether to implement it and whether we can afford to. It is a legal and moral obligation that we have to millions of South Africans who wake up every single day jobless and with very little hope of finding a job in this current environment. So we welcome the extension of the social distress relief grant by a year, but we would have liked to hear firm plans about the implementation of a basic income grant.
Quickly, the basic income grant, do you guys think it's affordable?
We think it's affordable. It's about restructuring our finances. The previous finance minister undertook to implement zero-based budgeting. If we implement zero-based budgeting and say one of the top priorities for our country is to make sure that there's a basic income guarantee for those who are unable to access any income for themselves, that has to happen, and it can happen within our fiscal envelope.
Mr. Brett Herron, General Secretary of the Good Party, thank you so much for your reaction. For more reactions now, Natasha is standing by.
Thank you, Bulelani, once again. I'm now joined by the Justice Minister, Mr. Ronald Lamola. Mr. Lamola, we heard the President saying that there are talks with the judiciary to actually establish special courtrooms to deal with state capture and corruption. Does this make you happy?
Yeah, no, he said that prioritize court role, not to establish special courts. We have already established 4 additional special commercial crimes court. You all remember after the PPE scandal, that is what he had announced, and that enables us to be able to engage with all the stakeholders in the justice system, the judiciary, the NPA, and all role players to be able to have a dedicated court role or a prioritized court role that will enable these matters to be handled expeditiously.
Mr. Lamola, last week was quite a busy one for the Judicial Service Commission. I mean, it came under the spotlight. You now have foundations like the Helen Suzman Foundation saying that they're actually considering litigation against the JSC. There was also that shouting match between you and Commissioner Malema. Just tell us what the gripe of contention actually was.
Yeah, obviously what happened in the Judicial Service Commission should will be part of the report that will be delivered to the President by the Supreme Court of Appeal Deputy Judge President, who was chairing the proceedings. From that, then the President will take a decision in terms of what will be his preferred person that he will want to appoint in terms of Section 1743 of the Constitution.
Mr. Lamela, thank you so much for your time. Let me just actually link to my colleague Usamgele Maseko. Sam?
Yes, indeed, Natasha. The politicians are reacting here. We've got the minister in the presidency responsible for state security, Babu Mondli Kungubele. Mr. Kungubele, in essence, when are you fixing state security? The president spoke about how that was hollowed out, and particularly looking at the high panel report into state security. What are some of the changes that you are bringing there?
Immediately, Samkel, having said that, immediately the Sydney Mufumadi High Panel Review, the Sunday, July report which we released on Monday, has taken a task away from us of diagnosing, because they have spoken about a broken institution that is unstable, which has hollowed skills out and so on. So our job is clear, is to analyze the extent of that damage. Already in the past 2 weeks since I've arrived, we are filling some vacancies which are urgent, internal and external. But at the same time, we are developing a comprehensive plan that is going to look at a bigger picture, so that as we fill those positions, the bigger picture of strategy is there. In other words, we need to have a clear, concrete nature of the problem we're dealing with. I was saying to the team yesterday, the background that led to this crisis, what kind of baby has it given birth to, which we don't want? Which kind of baby we want, and what is the route between these two babies? In a week's time, we are completing that. We will submit it to the South African National Security Secretariat to analyze it and take it to the National Security Council. We hope by end of March, we must have finalized that plan and be able to, but we're not waiting for that. We are rushing in areas that are urgent to fill skills that cannot wait.
I put it to you, Mr. Kungubela, that you and the president here today have misled the nation in the sense that you released a statement in saying that the president will provide more meat and substance on what will be done on the expert panel report that was released on the July unrest. Yet the president says by June, no later, he will tell the nation on what will happen.
Which June are you talking about?
The president said, the president said he will provide more clarity in the State of the Nation address on the action that will be taken in your own statement on the July unrest. But the can was kicked downstream here in the State of the Nation in response to the plan to implement what will be done on the July unrest report. He's kicked the can downstream.
I don't know what you heard, Samker. I heard the president to be saying there will be interventions, we will implement the recommendations of the panel, but he's not the one implementing, it's us. I didn't speak about June. I'm saying to you, already we are implementing, and I anticipate that by end of March, at least latest April, we'll have completed the plan. So we are intervening. I don't know what you heard about June, and I'm saying it's us who are implementing. The president makes the directives. So there's no one who has misled anyone as far as I'm concerned. Judge us on what we're going to do, on what, not what you had.
You said the president will provide clear plans and the directive on what will be done today.
No, there's no word clear plans. We said some action steps. Go and read that covering express statement. Read it now. It says some action steps. Check it. It didn't say clear plans. Some action steps. I say to you, we're developing plans now. It's us. When the president says, but there will be plans, it's us who formulate those plans and implement them. I say to you, go and read that covering letter. It says some action steps. At least my memory, 65 as I am, is still fine.
Thank you very much, Minister Mondli Kungubele. Over to my colleagues for more reaction.
Thank you so much, Sam. Of course, the man that has been busy for the past 2 weeks to ensure that this event goes smoothly without any incident is Police Minister. Mr. Bekicele, you must be relieved that the event was incident-free.
Well, more than being relieved, I remember your question this afternoon. If I believe that things will be fine. I think we have put a lot of effort. we were sure that at least this event will go accordingly, and we are quite relieved that almost it went incident-free.
All right, now let's touch on the State of the Nation address. The President is saying that Cabinet as a whole must take responsibility for the July unrests of last year. From the police's side, you've also been found wanting when it comes to crime intelligence. Can we expect any major reshuffling when it comes to the leaders of that institution?
You see, we'll have to really sit down to understand how this body is working. To start with, the minister himself has got nothing to do with the employment of the National Commission of the South African Police Service. That is a prerogative of the president.
From an oversight point of view?
Let me go on with the story. The second one, all these operators are employed by the National Commission of the South African Police without the minister. So those 6 top officials of the crime intelligence, if you can be told, you'll see there was a lot of correspondence between the minister himself and the National Commissioner saying this can't happen, is wrong. You keep those people there, and if there is any issue with them, deal with that issue quickly. So President here talk about the operational heads, so it must be made on that one. Indeed, it's an oversight, as you correct, but anything that I detect and anything that I'm unhappy about it when it comes to the National Commissioner, it goes to the President. Hence, there have been the correspondence between me and the President about the issues that I've raised. But those issues are between me and the President, so I leave them in that understanding.
Do you want General Kehlas Tolle to go?
I want the general, I want the National Commissioner that will work together in a full understanding that our job is not the alignment to the factions, as there's been a call of that, but the person that when it comes to the crime intelligence, we are together, we are working in unison, both physically and mentally, and both in understanding that our first prize is to deal with the crime rather than any other thing.
Lastly and quickly, Minister, are you working together? That's the question.
Well, up to this point, especially on the latter part of our even today, he's not here. I was moving around the laboratories, he's not there. Most of the time I find myself working with the deputies. Maybe that question you'll ask him, why most of the time the minister will work with the deputies rather than the man himself.
Police Minister, Mr. Bheki Cele, thank you so much for your time. Of course, just highlighting some of the challenges within his department. For more reaction, Natasha, standing by.
Thank you, Bulelani. I'm now joined by the leader of Jama-ah, Mr. Hanif Hendricks. Mr. Hendricks, we know the July unrest report says that government must take responsibility. You heard the president there in his SONA speech saying that this is indeed a responsibility government actually accepts and takes responsibility of. And he also said that he will be soon announcing leadership changes in the security cluster. Is this enough or not?
Look, it's a good start, but not enough, because the report fingered the executive, in other words, the cabinet. It fingered our security forces. They don't make the cut. The country is not safe. It is so not safe that the president himself came to check out the security at the City Hall. He's got no confidence in the security forces. He's now put the security responsibility in his presidency. So we are unfortunately in a situation where there has to be consequential management, and those cabinet members responsible, they know who they are, they must fall on their swords. They must not make it difficult for the president and difficult for the country, especially with the factionalism. Some of them want to take advantage of it and remain in their positions, but this is not going to help the country. I told the president the second day of the unrest when he called on political parties to show restraint, everything is in order. We told him you're living in a fool's paradise. Instead of restraint, you should show a show of force. And the report has vindicated Jama-ah that we did warn the president. We lost 300 lives. We lost many more livelihoods. And the country is not safe. And externally, we see that we rely on America and Britain, to look at the possible incursions into the country. We don't want another country to invade us. We already have enough problems with the looting, and there's possibly going to be more looting, and we don't have peace of mind that we are geared up to deal with. There's no resources. Intelligence forces don't even have money to pay for pumps to advise them what is going to happen. That is the basis of any intelligence. You get information from the communities and you pay them. They didn't have money to buy them a bottle of orange juice. So it is really sad, but the NEC of the ANC on the eve of SONA came to Jama-ah and asked them if we will stand with the president. So we said yes, we will listen to SONA, the plans and the programs, and we're very excited to say that we stand with the president, that we like his plans, that we will support the programs. We've already assisted with regard to the water shedding and day zeros we have in many villages in the Eastern Cape. Tomorrow we're going to help the Deputy Minister in allocating 10,000 grants for small businesses for startup. So we stand with the president and we stand with his plans and we will support his programs. Thank
you so much, Mr. Hanif Hendricks, saying that he will support the programs of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Samgele, I understand you have a guest with you?
Yes, indeed, Natasha. We've got the Minister of Home Affairs, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. Minister Motsoaledi, just in essence, the President spoke about the 10,000 jobs that will be provided by the Department of Home Affairs. How are you going to do this? What's the program of action?
Yes, these 10,000 jobs will be there for a period of 3 years. This is for unemployed youth who have qualified in the field of information technology, because these young people are going to do something which is very big for the economy. The Department of Home Affairs has got 300 million records in various archives. 300 million records, that stretches from 1895. Now, Samkelo, when you come to Home Affairs, you want to open a business. You want certain information which pertains to maybe your grandfather, great-grandfather, or even your father. It takes us about 2 weeks to get that information because it's manual in all the area, the places where we've kept our records. Now, the digitization means that it will be on the fingertips. But in the process, it will give 300 young unemployed people a job for the next 3 years. And we are starting that in May. We've been planning this for the past 18 months. I was very excited when the president eventually announced it, because now we are going to hit the ground running in looking for those young people.
Mr. Motsoaledi also spoke about the immigration laws, particularly saying that a new skills model, which are scarce skills that are needed in South Africa, will have to be in line with our immigration policies that can also respond to the economic needs of the country. What's your response to this and linking foreign immigrants coming into the country with the scarce skills that the country needs?
He has mentioned two things, Samkelo. Firstly, the issue of critical skills list. Generally, the critical skills list must be reviewed every 4 years. Unfortunately, the last time it was reviewed was in 2014. We have been working over the past 3 years with the Department of Higher Education, because they were driving the process, the Human Science Research Council, universities, other experts, labor experts, network. We finally have got that list. That list is in keeping what our economy needs, because generally around the world, when people talk immigration, they say it's immigration for development. It's not immigration for the sake of it, which seems to be what people expect in South Africa. That immigration just must be for, for charity and all that. Immigration is always for development. If I put this system of immigration, how much will the country develop? For development of both nationals and non-nationals, that's what immigration must be. And that's the first thing is announced. And we have already gazetted the new skills list, critical skills list, on the 2nd of February. And let me, before leaving that, many people confuse critical skills with important skills. The two things are not necessarily the same thing. For instance, the legal profession was fighting when we drew in this list. That law, anybody with a law degree must be classified as a critical skills. I'm giving that as an example because the legal profession is very important in our country. If you saw what happened when the judges were being interviewed, that's the legal profession. But it's not a critical skills, because critical skill doesn't need important. It means the skills in which you have got a shortage of people. That's what critical skills means. You look and say, look, if I'm short of a plumber, yes, that's a critical skill if there are no plumbers in South Africa. But if I don't have a shortage of lawyers, that's not a critical skill, important as it is. So I just wanted to clarify that. The second thing the president mentioned is about visas. There are lots of countries that come to South Africa visa-free. The whole of Western Europe, the whole of the US, the whole of SADC. But there are other countries like China, India, and Nigeria. The three of them constitute 1/3 of the world population. They need visas to come to South Africa. So to simplify it, we have piloted the issue of e-visas. And we have piloted in those countries. We've extended to 14 other countries, which means they will add to those who come visa-free to make it easier for people who are coming to South Africa to establish business or even to perform important work, even these critical skills, so that they find it easier to come to the country.
Thank you very much, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi, who's the Minister of Home Affairs. Back to you, Bongiwe and Vuyo in studio.
Thanks very much, Sankelo, part of the trio of our political team members, bringing us all the reaction from the various political parties, as well as members of President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet. And I want to pick up on